23-year-old independent AI-driven growth company helping brands acquire new customers in this kind of ever-changing digital world we all find ourselves in today. So before we launch into predictions for the upcoming year, just wanted my colleagues on the call to introduce themselves as well.
Hey guys, I'm Corey Levine, the SVP of Media here at Direct Agents, and excited to get into some predictions for this upcoming year.
And I'm Mickey Schluter. I'm the supervisor of SEO and analytics here at DA, and I'm also super excited to kind of dive into the predictions and what we're seeing.
Lots of excitement today, obviously, and thank you guys so much.
Topic, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Before we jump in, I don't know if all of you can see this. Mickey, I told you about this. I assure you this poorly makeup covered black eye of mine is not me picking fights in the streets of Brooklyn. I was actually headbutted by a toddler a day ago. So if you have kids, it's one of those if you know thing. So he's safe.
You look great, Megan.
Thanks guys, appreciate it. But I wanted to let everyone know, just in case, don't be afraid. It is a very G-rated black guy. Anyway, so we wanted to jump into this. So we wanted to host this predictions webinar just to talk about what we expect to happen this year, right? And what brands should be prepared for. There's just so many things, obviously, that we all talk about every day, but we want to hone in on like 4 to 5. So let's just jump in and get started and kind of get this conversation kicked off. So one thing I'm seeing right now is something that I think nobody in marketing really wants to talk about or say out loud, because when you talk about AI, like AI could do no wrong, right? But obviously, in my opinion, I think AI has made us worse in 2025, and frankly, just unbelievably boring. And this just isn't my gut feeling. A lot of the data is backing this up, right? Consumers increasingly associate AI-driven brand experiences with inauthenticity and emotional distance. And people don't necessarily hate the technology, but they're far less likely to trust or engage content that feels automated or generic. So for us as marketers, you guys all know, we spent the last year and a half using AI to chase efficiency, like more content faster and at work, right? Until it didn't, because in the process, we created the most forgettable digital environment marketing has ever seen. And consumers are responding exactly how you think. They're pretty much over it, right? From our research, 76% of consumers say online shopping now lacks excitement. 79% say it feels lonely, and 78% say they are overwhelmed by choice. Because we flooded the environment with all this AI-generated sameness, it actively has been suppressing trust, consideration, and memorability. So what we're seeing now is this backlash, right, against brands that lean too heavily into automation without preserving really anything human.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in for a sec here too, Megan, I love the point about AI-generated sameness. It's a sea of sameness. You can actually see this happening at the platform level too, with major players fighting back against this AI slop and this AI onset of net new content. Search and content ecosystem partners are actively pushing back on this low effort, inauthentic AI outputs. YouTube actually updated its partner program to ban mass-produced kind of faceless content, which was, gaming the system more or less. And then Meta actually just removed over 500,000 kind of spammy or fake accounts in one, foul swoop. And a lot of them were largely driven by these inauthentic kind of AI engagement platforms where, you think you're winning up front and maybe it's a quick win initially. But, we're all human. We understand when something doesn't seem authentic. We live in a world now where there is limitless amounts of content and it all can be produced at scale. And what really makes a difference is authenticity, trustworthiness, and a human perspective. Those are the things that really win in this era. All these platforms are smart enough to identify, spammy or unhelpful content. So in order to break through, you really need human insights and connections involved in the process. From an SEO perspective too, just to get into that, it's not a volume thing. It's originality, lived experience, point of view. The things that AI, struggles to fake is exactly what the algorithms are trying to, push away and not showcase to users. Creating this type of content at scale is what wins, not the AI generated slop where you can put out 25 blog articles or 25 page optimizations that don't have any human intervention. all search engines and these platforms that we advertise on want to provide their user with the best user experience and the answers that they're looking for. That's why they're billion-dollar companies. So before you publish, 50 AI-generated pieces of content, understand that these machines are smart enough to understand that it won't be helpful.
Mickey, you touched on the SEO perspective, and some on this topic from a paid perspective. I think there's two factors for predictions that I'm thinking that I think everybody needs to kind of latch onto. And before I get into it, I'll go over something that Adam Morrissey, the head of Instagram, kind of announced, which was he doubled down on an announcement recently about users and content creators being real and raw and shooting and authentic content. And I think in 2026, we're probably, one of the predictions is we're going to go through a pendulum swing here. I think brands and creators potentially actually might go to real and authentic and raw and not even understand what the word authentic means when we're trying to combat the what a lot of people in the industry are talking about as AI slop. But I think it's going to be really important to not think necessarily from a paid perspective with what ad I'm showing to a user, AI slop versus reality. The question that we have to continue to ask ourselves in 2026 is, how am I going to stand out from an even more crowded content space? Mm-hmm. And that can't go unsaid. Whether your audience wants real, authentic, just shot from the front camera, whether your audience and you're a brand that needs more professional, polished type creative, you should still stay authentic to your brand's beliefs and visions. But putting yourself in the view of a consumer, we're going to have more content than we ever had before. I mean, there is an actual platform, Sora, that has a social feed that is just a feed of AI generated videos. I think in 2026, we're going to continue to see more and more and more of that. And I think the tools are going to continue to get better and better and better. And so I think it's how do we embrace it, to Megan, your point of efficiency, but how do you stand out? How do you actually balance authenticity this year? And this is important because if everything looks the same, if everyone's doing authenticity, then it once again goes back to what is authenticity. And I think not only from a creative perspective, instead of thinking how you shoot it, I think it's more about how users, personalization, different type of creative. How do you use AI and not be scared of it? But how do you not just become an AI farm of just this? My content is all generated this way. I think we have to be real. The brands that do it right in 2026 are going to kind of use it, but address the fact that people are concerned. Are these coming for creators' jobs, people's jobs in every industry? And so there is still that human element that we also need to factor into this. And I think outside of creative, this year we're going to see, because this prediction is wrapped into that human element of AI. This year we're going to see more and more AI agentic buying models and AI agentic type tools in DSPs, in platforms. I think in CES, Reddit announced they're now launching a new one just to go, like Meta and TikTok did this past year. Yahoo DSP, which is a fantastic DSP, just announced their agentic integration. And I think it's all about really understanding if every marketer that's in these platforms is using these AI tools, is it unique? Is your media plan, is your inventory, is what you're doing more unique than anyone else who used the same AI agentic tool? And so this year, we're going to find more embrace of AI across both creative and paid media platforms. But we're going to hopefully see, the big prediction is doubling down on humans overseeing and making these tools and these media plans and this creative more unique in its own way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think brands really need to internalize that, because efficiency, some of these things, they used to be a competitive advantage, right? But this year, it's just table stakes. Every brand has access to the same tools, the same shortcuts, the same performance plus whatever it is, that same acceleration. So what actually differentiates brands right now are the things that you need humans for, right? It's taste, it's perspective, it's emotional intelligence, it's a clear point of view, right? So our first prediction for 2026 is exactly that. This is the year that humans kind of come back into the forefront, and especially human creativity becomes a performance strategy again. Not because we suddenly know how to do it and we rediscover the craft, but just all the sameness, all of it, whether it be media buying or creative, it's just become so suffocatingly boring that anything human kind of stands out relatively instantly, right? And the brands that win won't be the ones that are going to be the most automated. They're going to be more distinct, right? Maybe it'll be more messy, opinionated, funny, emotional. They're just going to be human. You really have to think about what people actually want. What does your consumer actually want? So I want to talk really quickly about some action items, things that brands can do to use this information to recraft their 2026 strategy. So Mickey and Corey, can you just talk through some best practices and things that you'd like to see brands do this year?
Yeah, and I think something I've seen a lot is that brands need to really rethink their content model. Right now, I see a lot of different brands acting like anything that's being produced on their site is more of an assembly line production. We need to make it seem like it's a creative studio. Take pride in the content that you publish to your site that you're sharing with your potential customers and with the world. This means potentially fewer pieces, and obviously, I'm not saying don't publish a lot of content. You want high quality content and a high amount of that content, but we want stronger point of views. We want real expertise included into these specific types of content being published on the site. Investing in creators, subject matter experts, and using not thin and unoriginal thoughts. Those are the ways that you'll win from a content perspective, and how you'll see visibility gains across traditional search engines and AI search engines as well. In 2026, search continues to reward depth, originality, and that lived experience that we talked about. So always refer back to this EAT framework. I feel like it's been around for nearly 7 or 8 years. Is your content written by an expert? Does it show experience? Is it authoritative? Are you showcasing that you're the brand who knows what they're talking about? And are you honest and trustworthy? Is it something that when consumers go to it, they feel good about enjoying your content? Now, AI should really accelerate research and workflows, but as humans, we should continue to have our finger on the pulse and continue to own the narrative of what's being published.
In a similar vein, about that, I want to double down, Mickey, on something you said, and I want to from a paid perspective, I think it's really number one, test what works for you. What works for your audience, what works for your brand. Don't necessarily be scared, but don't take be more nimble in your perspective. What I mean by that is you want to use AI to build, help build ads, and that's something your audience wants. Test that against human build ads. See what your audience wants. I think some of the core principles of what it means to be a good marketer in 2026 remain the same as it has in the past. Continue to poke, continue to test. I think the goal is really about, yes, everybody wants conversions, but I think it's really a lot in this day and age about memorability, because the brands people remember are the brands they come back to. Don't assume. So from a creative perspective, just constantly test, find what works for you within your brand safety and suitability threshold. Second would be from a performance perspective. Don't just assume that what you're reading about how good these AI models are from the trades is true. Test them like you would have tested 5 years ago, the first algorithmic bidding model. Like, test them and don't just give the keys over. Lean on experts, lean on your knowledge in 2026. Hold those platforms and those AI agentic agents accountable, and make sure that it is performing for you, and find the pockets of success like you would have in any other day. Almost like don't allow what it means to be a marketer to be taken away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, because AI has been great. I mean, for us, for operational lift, it should absolutely clear bottlenecks that do work that nobody has time for, but we can't let it get in the way, right? We can't let it bleed into places that require people. And that's what we've been doing, frankly. I see it all over the place, right? Because what's happened is we've created this digital world where everything starts feeling interchangeable, right? Like targeting, creative, everything. So we really think that 2026, this is the correction, right? Humans move back to the forefront of creative, of buying all of these different things. AI kind of moves to the background, frankly, where it belongs. And the brands that win are they going to be the ones that reintroduce what automation pushed out, right? Emotion, surprise, connection, all of these things, they're not nice to haves anymore. They're really the only differentiator it feels like we have left. So let's move into prediction 2. So most buying decisions today, as you guys know, and Corey, you're so well versed in this, aren't really happening on Google and Instagram anymore, right? It's where we would like to think they're happening, right? They're happening in places that are people are actually paying attention, right? Places like YouTube, CTV, Slack threads, Discord servers, Reddit, DMs, right? Because it feels like now, by the time somebody clicks on an ad in Meta, they're usually just confirming a decision that they already kind of made elsewhere. And one thing that we're seeing really, really clearly is that marketers have spent, us included, the last decade optimizing for Google and Meta. We're so good at it. But while we were doing that, the most influential parts of the buying journey completely changed, right? More and more purchase decisions are being shaped in places that you can't really see that easily, or maybe a little bit harder to track. Think about like private group chats, niche communities, peer-to-peer conversations. Like I know I'm personally part of a mom's Brooklyn Discord server who, believe me, has heard all about this headbutt incident, but whatever. And I can just tell you how many purchases I've made based on these conversations that I've had with these parents, right? And the shift is happening for a reason. Consumers are just burned out, right? They're burned out by ad-saturated sameness, algorithmic internet. They're just kind of over it. And online shopping, we talked about it, feels increasingly lonely, overwhelming, feels so transactional. And when people lose trust in these feeds, they look for trust in people, right? That's what's real. And nowhere is this shift more visible than Reddit, obviously. Reddit sees almost 47 million searches per day, which is just wild. And the people are looking for real experiences, unfiltered advice, and just community validation. We see a lot of people going saying, I'm going to buy this. What do you guys think, right? And to me, what's even more telling is that time spent on Reddit has grown from 215 minutes to 243 minutes, right? And this is at a time where if you look at Meta and even TikTok and really all social media platforms, attention is flatlined or it's declining. And that tells us that people aren't just like casually scrolling. They're really researching, they're really evaluating, they're deciding, and they're spending time there,
Yeah. And to your point, I am absolutely guilty of being sucked into Reddit, threads, rabbit holes, just diving into product research for something as simple as purchasing a new pair of basketball shoes, something along those lines. But I want to talk a little bit more about what we're seeing from a search perspective, because this is one of the biggest shifts we've seen in years. I'm sure everyone kind of has seen it. When you search something in Google, a Reddit thread tends to be at the top of the answers. You search for something, and I feel like the SERP is just flooded with Reddit responses. And there are a couple reasons for this. One is there's a partnership agreement between Google and Reddit. And this is partially why the Reddit threads are showcasing here. But two, it's because Google, like we kind of talked about earlier, human connection, trust, authoritativeness, and all this good stuff that makes a difference from a marketing perspective. It's what Reddit is. It's a very authentic community. They're still showcasing this human curated, context-rich answers within Reddit threads. So that's why you see Reddit threads ranking for things like product research or late-stage questions to really understand, hey, is this brand worth it? Should I continue purchasing through this? I mean, like I said, I am personally very guilty of making brand decisions and purchases based off of what I heard from a random person on Reddit. So it's definitely becoming part of the search channels. And I don't think that this trend kind of stops on Google. It expands into AI search as well. Across AI overviews, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude, Reddit isn't just influencing decisions that happen on the platform. It's influencing decisions that happen anywhere that search could potentially be happening right now. And that's why it's incredibly important to make sure that your brand has a presence there.
Yeah, Mickey, I think one of the ways I'm leaning into this topic for us in my mind is you have to be You have to be a part of the conversation when people in their pockets have a best friend, a whatever you want to prompt it to be available at any given moment. There, I think the consumer journey, the path to purchase, we've known this for a long time. It's definitely no longer linear, but it's not. It's even more fragmented than ever. And we've done such a good job as marketers over the years that people know that they're being sold to now. And when you kind of do ads plus AI, people are looking for that human element to things, to have a conversation with the human and be able to understand what pros and cons of a product and things of that nature. Megan, you mentioned Discord and Slack and the mom group you're in, and I think it's Reddit is very big. It's where so much traffic is going right now, and the AI, Mickey, with your point, the sources are citing Reddit a lot. Reddit, Wikipedia, YouTube, Reddit being one of the top ones. But I think more and more, its users are not so easily swayed by just seeing an ad in their feed and how we used to, as marketers, to talk about, well, the optimal frequency. These things still matter, but it's actually harder and harder. And so now users are more aware of being sold, and they have more connection at their disposal. So they're going and interacting with their DMs more than they are potentially their news feeds on Instagram. They're tapping into Reddit to be a part of a community. It's kind of like you need to kind of think bigger picture. And we've been talking about this for a while, but really not just lean into the CPA chasing and what looks good from a reporting perspective. You really need to think way more larger from a brand perspective to be successful in this new era and in 2026. I think it's about putting, understanding, making sure Reddit's a part of the plan. It's about being a part of finding ways to integrate yourself into these conversations, and it's about driving that connection, and then finding better ways to actually track that down funnel. Because if you're not a part of those combos, the brands that are, the products that are, they're the ones that are going to be first in mind. And so once a user has kind of made up their mind, it's very hard to sway them. So I think it's from a media perspective, it's don't just do, I'm setting this optimization to conversion and I'm going to, test a few ads and I'm going to see what drives the best CPA. It's how can I have that layer always, but then how can I strategically elevate my overall media plans, and how can I actually give a platform like a Reddit that might not have had as much stake in the game before the right light it needs so that your brand can be part of the consideration journey.
100%. So for 2026, our prediction is exactly what you've been hearing, right? The most influential parts of the buying journey are no longer what we've spent all this time optimizing for, right? Google and Meta, important, obviously always on layer, but in 2026, dark social, Reddit, all of these other platforms, they're going to shape more purchase decisions than the things that you are spending so much time and energy kind of optimizing for. Not because meta ads don't work, they do, obviously, but it's just because it all feels so contrived, right? There's a new set of platforms that are moving in and that are more influential now. So I really like Reddit. And I think people really do like Reddit because it's a place where you can be really authentic, right? It's a place where people can say what they really, really think. And that's why people trust it, not what they want to be seen thinking, right? It is very, 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 we were talking about what is authenticity. It is a very authentic place, right? So the real question for brands is just how do you still use media efficiently while accounting for the fact that that influence has moved into these different human-led spaces? How do brands actually do this?
I think Corey hit on it pretty well with understanding that, it's not just one or two channels anymore where brands are discovered. There are all these different places where your brand could be potentially being mentioned and be a part of the conversation. So, and this goes to organic as well. We are seeing this across a bunch of different clients that, Reddit should be a core part of your organic ecosystem, not just this testing channel or platform. The way I look at search in 2026 is more about being visible wherever your consumers are searching. And that could be Reddit, that could be ChatGPT, that could be Google. It most likely is Google, but there are all these different organic ways that you can be discovered. And I think it's important for brands to understand that your brand is being discussed on Reddit, whether you participate or not. Brands who are able to have, a finger on the pulse of their consumers can excel organically. And, I'm not just saying you have to open this Reddit account and interact with anything and everything. Obviously it's a delicate community, and I think it should be treated as such. And, you should respect the rules. You can't spam in there without getting banned and whatnot. But even without commenting on posts, you can utilize insights and takeaways from real users and their experience with your products and your brand to help inform content development, to understand how customers are actually searching for your products, and then even how they engage with your products. I think it's also important to note that Reddit gives you a good gauge of the sentiment of your brand overall, and I think it's something that you really can't get just looking out into the world or seeing something, a Google article or something along those lines. You get a real understanding of how the community is receiving your products and your brand. On a more advanced level, one thing that we've seen success with is launching these non-brand Reddit profiles to help engage and influence consumer decision makings. And I'm not saying you just pray and spray and go in and comment on everything. If you focus on specific topics and themes that are relevant from a keyword perspective and are searched a decent amount, a lot of times you can influence what's showing up in traditional search engines as well as AI search engines. So when someone clicks on a Reddit thread from a Google search, it's populating your response with your brand mention and whatnot. So I think that's another layer that could be executed from an organic perspective on the Reddit side.
Quick question, Mickey. Is our Reddit service offering only developed so you can spend more time on Reddit?
I mean,
give me the real.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been a part of why,
Okay, sorry. I won't tell anyone.
Actually, but everyone's hearing Reddit, and Megan, even jokes aside, although Mickey, that's hilarious. I do think that I'm gonna plug our offering as well. I think you're hearing us talk about Reddit right now, and it's because transparently Reddit has flown under the radar from a media mix perspective historically. There's been many reasons for that. Whether it hasn't been performative in comparison to other platforms, or whether it's felt unsafe as a brand to be a part of it, or whether it's just so nuanced and there's its own unique Reddit culture that it's sometimes difficult to wrap your head around. I think right now, number one, do it right on Reddit, but don't let perfect stop you. I think that's going to be a big thing this year as people are learning this undervalued platform. From a paid perspective, Reddit, we've had a lot of success internally with active clients on Reddit, getting it to be performative, a testament to the strategies we've implemented internally, and also to the partnerships at Reddit that have actually done a great job of changing their backend systems to allow their ads to be more performative. So if you tested it once before and it wasn't for you, it didn't perform, a lot has changed. So I would highly recommend getting that back on a plan in a testing capacity. Right now, internally, I think daily, we have so many clients asking how to build an organic presence, how to properly be a part of the community. How do you do organic and paid together? What is the Reddit flywheel? And that is where at DA, we have a great Reddit offering that is organic and paid. Mickey kind of touched on a few of the key elements, but in this, because it's about predictions, we didn't get into even half of what we're offering here. But I think lean on experts, reach out to experts that are building these and have that experience, because Reddit can be scary, but there's a lot of nuance from the moderator perspective and what they allow in communities and kind of how you do it. But I think that's where that don't do it right, but don't be scared. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think if you have the right people guiding your brand, helping you navigate it, Reddit is going to see big growth in 2026. It already saw it in 2025, so doubling down on that for this year.
Yeah, and I think it's even more important as Gen Z becomes this dominant source of new digital buyers, right? There's between now, essentially in 2028 or 29, roughly 90% of all net new digital buyers are going to come from Gen Z. That's where your growth's coming from. And their trust dynamics look nothing like previous generations, right? So we're not saying that Reddit is going to place media or AI or search or any of that stuff, but I think this year is going to be the year where everybody realizes these channels are really kind of impossible to ignore. So let's go into our next trend. And this actually flows really well into the conversation we were just having about like measurement and impact of channels and things like that, because for years we've all been in this space for a really long time, right? And for years, marketing measurement reward what was just easy to track, right? If a channel touched a conversion, it got credit. And this was at a time where like budgets were expanding and growth was cheap. It was like easy. We just ran everything on Meta, right? And we didn't question it, because why would we try to question something and make our life harder? Why were we going to try to fix what wasn't broken to us, right? But the truth of the matter, and it was true then and it's true now, but it's just gotten harder now, so we're really kind of like digging into it, is that every channel looks efficient because it claims credit, right? Every dashboard's telling a really great story, but yet a lot of our CMO clients are sitting in boardrooms, and I talk to CMOs and CEOs, and they're being asked, hey, if everything's working, if everything's hitting our ROAS goal, why isn't business growing faster? Why are we not scaling at the level that we should be, right? So our next prediction is around incrementality. And we really think that this year is the year that incrementality is finally going to hit the mainstream. We've been talking about it forever, but it's just been something that has kind of lived in the background, and not a lot of brands have really brought it forward, because incrementality can really tell you what measures, and this year, or what matters, and that really matters this year.
Yeah. And Megan, to your point, part of the reason why I think that this prediction will come to fruition is you're right. All the CMOs, we see all these pretty dashboards, things look great, but at the high end, they're not seeing those results that is being promised by these platforms. So, as we dive into all these different media channels, and I'm sure Corey will talk about it even further, there's so many different places that we can potentially be right now. And traditional attribution models are breaking down, whether it be last touch, multi-touch, first touch, they're all proximity based. So whatever happens closest to the conversion is what's rewarded as the converting platform, not necessarily what caused it. So it makes it almost impossible to answer the question that these CMOs and leadership actually care about, which is, what is the true ROI of this specific campaign? And incrementality testing kind of forces this conversation to really ask the uncomfortable question of, hey, what would have happened if we didn't run this campaign at all? This is why we think it's not this new trendy thing, but it's becoming a real defensible way that you can prove impact for any sort of given campaign launch. And that could be on the paid side, organic side, new product launch, things along those lines. And I think it's extremely important that you understand that there isn't just one approach for understanding the impact. And we want to also identify how you can stretch the value of your budget further. And I think one thing I'm seeing is that smart brands are kind of layering 3 different measurement frameworks into their approach to incrementality. So you have media mix modeling, or MMM, which tells you, how much to invest and where for your given a specific budget, or if you're optimizing towards a revenue goal. You have GeoLift experiments to, prove whether a campaign actually moved the needle versus, a control group, and then a causal impact analysis, which, isolates what happened when something changes. You're measuring these actual results versus what a model predicted would have happened should we not have run that campaign, or if the new product didn't launch. These aren't a replacement for attribution, but they help correct and refine it so you can really understand the true value of the media channels and what's properly being attributed and where money should be, spent. So they help you move past the surface level optics and into this, high, quality measurement system that can help defend the ROI of a campaign or a given media channel. Let's say you're not seeing direct results on Reddit right away, but through incrementality testing, you can be like, hey, no, once we launch this, we've seen an 18% lift in conversion volume that wouldn't have happened had we not gone onto Reddit. So this is exactly what marketers as well as CMOs want to deliver to justify the success of their efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the measurement, Megan, you said, we all know this. We're all marketers for a while. We've been talking about this, and I think something that we don't do enough not to get philosophical, but is like sympathize with each other.
Yeah.
We came from a industry that for the longest time it was so easy to just attribute the performance, the revenue, you just knew it was true. There was always some holes, but it made better sense on the back end. Like you trusted kind of what you were seeing. And yet, like for many reasons that we all know, signal loss, like privacy, things like that, to just name a few, like measurement became harder, and it was never replaced with a simplified, easy replacement. And so, we not only need to work to like educate each other and talk to each other more openly about what performance means in 2026, but I think like number one, larger decisions have to be made with more data, and smaller decisions can be made off of smaller sets of data and platform data. Now, while that's very simple to say, some great things that we've done for clients to help navigate this is a lot of our clients have moved to LTV to CAC models, and we've actually been able to build out custom bidding algorithms that integrate with the LTV to CAC models. So now a signal in the bidding is not just the platform signal. And we've been able to work with our clients to see great results on this, where they're kind of seeing more parity between their back end and what we're reporting out on. And then to Mickey's point, like you should always have incrementality layered on it. It should just be something that is table stakes. It's always there, and you're always using it on that larger data set to make those larger decisions and to reinforce what you're actually reporting out on. And so this year, the reason that we're bringing this up today, and it's even more important, is because we're talking. We just spent some time talking about Reddit, which historically has been harder to get performative from a CPA perspective from a brand or a meta. But as we've learned, brand search looks great until you test holding it out. Retargeting looks efficient until you measure the incrementality. Upper funnel look weak until you isolate their lift. And so I think it's if you're going to put more of these partners on the plan and you're actually going to grow the business, it's ensuring that the model has changed, how you look at things have changed. I think too often, this year we'll probably see a lot of brands not just focusing on that first user acquisition. Instead, we're gonna see more brands understand that actually probably is the most expensive consumer to get, because it takes the most touch points. And in the crowded marketplace, kind of the whole through line with the ads, with the AI generated content, with these discussions in the consumer journey fragmenting, you need to get in front of a user more. Your frequency needs to increase. If your frequency increases, your cost will increase. If it's going to take more, it's going to be more to acquire a user. So it's about acquiring the right user. It's about focusing on repeat purchasers, repeat customers, making sure that you're nurturing the people that you spend this hard work doing, and layering incrementality and doing advanced LTV to CAC type bidding models that allow you to set yourselves up for success, make sure that every dollar is actually doing its job.
Yeah, I really hope that we're right on this one, because right now only 26% of in-house marketers are running like MMM internally today. Most brands are still relying on those tools that optimize within a channel, not across the whole business. And I know this is like one of those hills that we keep dying on, and we're like, we keep hammering it home. But I think you're right. I think that gap is exactly why this is such an opportunity, because we're all working with constrained budgets. I've never talked to a brand who's like, oh yeah, totally, more money, no problem, right? Our competitors always feel like they're outspending us, right? So the brands that adopt this incrementality won't just measure better, they'll make better decisions, less friction, more confidence, they can scale it easier. It really is feels like a matter of survival in this new landscape to me.
Yeah, and I think we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. It's blending everything together, not just having a single attribution model in place, but moving towards this integrated system where you have MMM for planning and allocation, understanding where budgets are going to go, GeoLift to validate the success of a campaign or the launch of something so that you could potentially utilize it more going forward, and then the causal impact to understand post-campaign learnings. They all work together to feed into this one cohesive measurement loop. I do think that, this is incredibly important for us as marketers to understand. We can't just grasp at straws and hope that, if we turn a button on and click something and turn a campaign and run it, that the results are going to be there. We have to come to the table ready to, validate the performance and the learnings that we have there.
Yeah, Megan, if you don't mind, because this one's this one's exciting for me. If I can,
Please.
I'm gonna take this one from you for a second and kind of bucketing this one and kind of like our another prediction is that if content can be skipped and summarized and compressed, it will be, or at the very least, it'll be filtered before consuming. And so that's a lot. What do we mean by that? Is I think it's always been funny when we've talked about for a long time that attention spans have gotten shorter than that of a goldfish, and it's like and that was like 5 years ago, and now what we're seeing is if you've recently watched a YouTube video, you could hit the Gemini button and you can hit summarize the video before you even watch it. A lot of people that use RSS readers, they're sharing articles they see online, and these RSS readers are providing an AI generated summary of the article itself. Same thing is happening with podcasts. Notebook LM, you're able to upload a bunch of PDFs and you get a podcast summary of those PDFs. You're going to have some users using that to summarize and compress what they're consuming and just be faster and more intentional with their time. Or you're going to have some users using it as a filter for, is this worth my time? I think it's a big thing we've been seeing, especially in the younger generation. They're being way more intentional with how they spend their time, what content they choose. And so what that means for us, and the reality is that they're not like disengaging necessarily when we see engagement results go down. They're just optimizing. Long form content still matters, but in this world, we have to be aware that there's more content than there's ever been. The content creator business has taken off completely, and everybody's making money off of our attention. Now that we know that, we're more intentional with where and how we spend our time. So in this year, in 2026, why that matters is that CTV, like prime opportunity, the lean back environment, CTV, that type of inventory, that is where so much attention is going to go, because there's no way to summarize that. And not only that, but if we think about all the social platforms, like for the last 2 years, we've been we're seeing online testing TikTok, how to make TikTok work. TikTok has something like 155 million, active users. Like, this is no longer a testing type platform. This is where people are spending their time. So I think one of the realities here is that like we need to make sure that we're leaning into platforms that are no longer optional. We need to be aware that even if there is a premium in comparison, like a CPM on CTV versus a CPM on a Facebook, we need to be understanding that you're paying a little bit of a premium for that dedicated attention, and that some of the old platforms that have always been staples on the plan. Megan, this kind of goes with what you said about the Gen Z users in the next 3 years, like really becoming the primary force in the purchase decision. Like they've constant blogs online. They're more awake about these platforms building a model of monetization off of their time. So they're less interested in potentially even spending that time on these platforms. So from a media perspective, your marketing mix needs to adjust for that. You need to start thinking about how to put yourself where the attention is. Your strategy, your patience behind some of these things, it's not going to potentially be as immediate as the Googles and the Metas used to be, but just thinking in the immediate term is going to leave a lot of brands behind. And so I think it's really, they're not like these should not be seen. My thought on the paid media side here is these are no longer seen as like upper funnel experiments. Like, should I siphon off some budget from my media mix to dip my toe in these platforms, or even the fear of I can't measure it, so I'm not using it. This is now, you need these on your plan, and the conversation should be geared around how do we figure out where it sits in the funnel. How does it work, and how can I measure it? Instead of that short term, after a month, it wasn't performative, so I'm out. That's the wrong direction we think that everybody should go in this new age of about the premium value of attention.
Yeah. And like you said, like long form content is so crucial for us, obviously, as marketers, but those consumers, they don't want to sit through it in its entirety anymore, right? AI has trained us all to expect efficiency and how we consume information. So if something feels too long or too dense or effort heavy, they just assume there's a faster way to get to the point, and increasingly there is, right? So people either engage instantly with content that earns their attention, or they choose environments where they can lean back and kind of let that experience happen. And that's, to your point, exactly why so much attention is concentrating in different platforms. It's not disappearing, right? The attention has stayed the same. People are spending the same amount of time with media, but they're spending time differently, right? And it's why platforms like TikTok and CTV are absorbing so much of that time, because they remove that cognitive burden of like, how do I consume this, right? It's very clear how you consume that.
Yeah, and I think to both of your points there, attention, not only is it shrinking, but it's tougher to gain, and these are core platforms where you can make sure that you're capturing that attention. And I think, Corey, to your point, you were talking about earlier, a lot of brands won't see success right away within that 1 month. And we're not seeing direct results from it. And so we're going to can using TikTok. And I think this is why we kind of talked about earlier, measurement needs to evolve. CTV and TikTok, they don't fit into last click attribution. CTV can drive brand lift, emotional resonance, and that stuff could show up weeks later when someone's searching for something on Google. And TikTok, can help drive discovery that eventually will influence those downstream platforms as well. And I think if you're only measuring success by direct conversions or CPAs with these specific types of platforms, then you're going to undervalue them. And I think that's something that we're focused on here from a measurement standpoint, is making sure that those channels aren't undervalued, and you can really see the success of launching and utilizing these campaigns. I think it's super crucial and important for us to have that measurement in place to really understand the full impact of these channels. It's not just that attention is captured and created. You really need to have measurement systems and frameworks that see beyond that last click to really, make sure that, hey, is this working? Do we know that we're capturing attention here?
Yeah. So in 2026, I think the winning media mixes, the winning brands, it's not about being everywhere. It's about being aware that attention still exists and knowing what happens when the attention runs out. And so that's a perfect, Megan, I'll tee you up. I think because that attention is becoming scarce, there's actually something else we're seeing happen as well. And consumers don't just want their content simplified, summarized, filtered out. They also want decisions simplified as well. Yeah. And that's where AI starts quietly stepping in to reduce that effort of discovery. It's not a replacement, but it's just an additional downstream layer that we all need to be aware of now.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go into our final prediction, because one of the biggest misconceptions that we hear in the industry is that agentic commerce. And if you're not familiar, agentic commerce is just the idea that AI systems will be autonomously shopping and transacting on users' behalf. The misconception is that this will completely replace search, retail websites, marketplaces, traditional browsing behavior, right? And truly, it keeps some of our clients up at night. But the data and user behavior are telling a very different story, right? A recent study shows that while AI assistants are growing in use, for instance, it said 40% of US shoppers now regularly engage with agentic shopping assistants, which is wild. Virtually all of them still use traditional channels like search or brand sites, social platform, marketplaces as part of their shopping journey. So there's no evidence yet that these agents are displacing the channels outright. Instead, consumers layer agentic behaviors on top of the existing ecosystem. So in 2026, agentic commerce isn't going to be a replacement, but it is going to be another channel in the portfolio. I know, right? Like, we weren't all busy enough, but it is one marketers that need to start including and thinking about in their customer journeys.
Yeah, I nail on the head, Megan. I think from a data perspective, we're seeing it emerge as an additional platform, not a substitute for D2C or Amazon specific channels. It's consumer behavior is fundamentally multi-channel. They discover products through search, AI, TikTok, CTV, all these different places are where brand discovery is happening. And then at the end of the day, most of the time when they want to move forward with a purchase, I feel like we're all guilty of potentially going on Amazon after we see something and making a quick purchase there because you can get it quickly, or going straight to the brand site. people aren't fully utilizing AI search engines and AI agentic commerce to move forward with their purchases just yet. It will plug into this journey a bit, but it won't replace the traditional systems that we have in place. Yes, totally optimizing for AI agents is critical. I do think, eventually we'll start to see more and more adaptation of utilizing these to move forward with purchases. And, it's important to have clean data, structured content, and to really enhance the discoverability. But this won't make your D2C site or your current existing Amazon presence completely obsolete, at least not in the near term or within a year. So obviously it's something you want to keep top of mind. But I think the strategic shift is this. Treat agentic commerce as this incremental channel where you could potentially squeeze out additional revenue opportunities, but not, this core converting channel just yet. I think, all your visibility still needs to work across the full funnel, not just in the background for agents. Search, retail media, social, and marketplaces will still drive the awareness and consideration that you need for someone to eventually move forward with purchasing your product. And then, of course, the one thing I want to call out with this is that agents also pull from what's visible. If you're not showing up on social, retail media, different marketplaces aren't mentioned by PR and whatnot, then you won't be in the agent's consideration, even if your D2C site is set up well. And then, of course, we've talked about this in the past that Amazon doesn't even pull from AI search engines just yet. So I think it's super important to understand that you can't just optimize for agentic commerce when you understand that it pulls from everywhere. So you need to make sure your presence is there as well.
Yeah, to that, Mickey, it's like agents may influence conversions. Especially on the easy routine replenishment type purchases, but high consideration moments are still going to play out on retailer sites and search platforms and through social engagement. So to your point, Mickey, like you got to be everywhere, but also, I think a great way to even put everything into perspective is we've seen in 2025 the boom of AI search, right? And there's all this talk, especially with power users, of who's no longer going to Google, do even use Google, things like that. Google still controls the bulk of searches on a regular basis, right? Like 90%. I mean, when you look at that, 90% of search is still going to Google. Yes, tides have shifted, but a lot of times, sometimes in regular conversation, it feels like we're operating like Google search is now 50%.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's it's really 2026. I think we're going to see so much growth. So this prediction is hard, but I think especially in the beginning of 2026, we're going to see people putting that more into perspective. And I think one thing for media that's important to note is we haven't even, yes, we're talking about being everywhere, people using these types of AI tools and AI type bots and resellers, but we know it's coming. We haven't seen ads in these platforms yet. And when that happens, do users still want to go into these platforms, trust? And we all know that platforms are being very careful with how they implement these, which is why they're not yet, or they're testing it. But I think it's still important to note that. And I also think we should not allow ourselves to lose sight of the conversation that's been around forever that is walled gardens. This AI agentic type of stuff, these AI agentic retail bots, these in platform, I could speak to you with a prompt and you could spit me out a media plan. They are still subject to, Mickey, what you said. They only see what they see.
Yeah.
And if you're in the walled garden, you're only seeing the data that's being fed to you. And so it's, budgets will not be consolidated into some single only agent bucket. Like they're going to have to still be allocated across channels that do feed into the agentic experience, as well as channels that do standalone into discovery and inspiration. And so don't overcorrect in 2026. And I think we're going to see a lot of brands kind of focusing on finding that happy medium while still riding that trend and being a part of the conversation and optimizing Mickey to being everywhere, but also understanding the limitations and what is actually going to move the needle for them when it comes to this agentic work streams.
Agreed. So we think the big change of 2026 is not that agents make everything else obsolete. It's that they will force brands to think in terms of distributed discovery, right? And we've been moving in this direction for a long time. You don't win by just being visible in one place. You win by being visible wherever intent originates. I don't care if that's Google, TikTok, Amazon, Reddit, AI, it really doesn't matter. And leading teams are really going to start re-architecting their SEO, their commerce media, their feed strategies to be machine readable, structured, and agent ready, because now we have to talk to both people and machines. Absolutely. So I think the real question is, how do brands ensure they're discoverable, preferred across every channel, including agentic ones, without using their identity, their measurement clarity, or like their sanity? Like I said, we're all at a place where there's already so much going on. How do we integrate this into our existing workflows?
Yeah, I could jump in on the traditional organic side to prepare for agentic commerce, and I think there's like 3 foundational components of it. It's structured product data that agents can really parse and understand, make it clear, make it concise, showcase the features and benefits. Cross-channel visibility that we've been talking about. This will build the preference that agents will pull from. And then also, measurement frameworks that track, agent influence, not just conversions, treating them as decision layers and not just these black boxes that exist in the ether.
Yeah, from a media side, I think stop thinking about new versus old channels. Start thinking, where is my audience's attention, their real attention. Start optimizing for orchestration across these channels, and measure incremental value, not just volume.
I love that. Okay, well, that's it. Those were our 5 predictions for 2026. I know we went a bit over, but it was such a good conversation. I really don't want to cut us short. So thank you all for being with us today. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email marketing@directagents.com. We'll make sure to get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Mickey and Corey, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you all later.
Yeah, thank you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.